Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're here for the back nine of the 2023 Discraft Presents Sun Kings Throwdown the Mountain 11. The famed Grand Canyon course. We've got a great feature card for you. We got some Lynds twins. We got Nid Ovathanasin. Got Ellen Widboom. She's also joining us on the mic. Come on. I don't think it gets any better than this.
I can't think of any other way.
We are here, and like I said, it's the back nine, round one of beautiful Friday mid-morning, almost trying to get into the afternoon hours, high 80s and low humidity, which that's not what we had in Tallahassee last week.
Absolutely not. I'm loving it. I'm loving the heat out here, Terry.
And now we're on 10, which some people love or don't. A little bit challenging. This is a newer hole in the last few years in the design of this, but ultimately a straight shot with a long dog leg that plays up to the top of this hill and a little bit of space for your putting green. And leading us off here on the back, this is Morgan Lynds.
Looks like Morgan was throwing the Zeus there, I believe. Popular disc in her bag. Jordan is also throwing the Zeus.
Interested seeing them both, opposite spin, so to speak, forehand and then backhand shots. You're going to the backhand. You said you've been working on this a little bit more. Are you specifically stepping up to? Oh, okay.
Maybe this is the wrong hole to talk about my backhand.
Okay, so that backhand's come. No, are you actively trying to throw this forehand less? Is I guess the question.
Yes, I committed to the backhand and the forehand. Now I'm just kind of trying to use for holes that actually require it or up shots. I'm really loving the backhand. I wish I had started it sooner.
Okay. This is definitely a backhand shot and gets hung up a little, but that'll work.
I'm trying to it was a savant. I maybe should have given a little bit more height, but I'm on the corner. I can see the basket. It's going to be a pretty steep shot uphill.
And we saw you kick toward the OB on the right-hand side, which is anything over the fence line. And even though you were safe, you get a full 2 meters, up to 2 meters. All players are eligible to take that. That's not a special case or provision or anything, but it's been clarified that, yes, up to 2 meters is what you can take from the fence line, whether you go out of bounds or not, because that is a barbed wire fence around the perimeter of the entire property. And now the forehand up and over, trying to fight it up the hill, and that's great placement.
Try to throw a disc that didn't have as much edge to it so that when it hit, it would just sit and not skip somewhere off to the side.
That's going to be up on the right side. Also, looks like it should be in a very puttable range from there. And you're noticing almost no wind on the actual flag right now on top of the basket, barely moving.
We're in a pretty protected area over here where we're about to come, or the next hole, we're going to head to the field where the wind is definitely prevalent. But yeah, we're pretty guarded over here on this green.
And Nid, I think back to what we saw from her on hole 8. So a little frustration. She had a really open lane to the basket, but then pulled it to the right. So if she's thinking about some places where she could clean up a stroke or two, that's definitely one of them. Those kind of unforced errors, especially when you put yourself in great position like she did.
Right.
Long jumper right next to the pin. Nid still hunting down her first birdie of the round. It's not going to come here on 10. And you're just inside the circle, and looks like you're forced to kind of almost a straddle.
I had a weird clump of anthill, cow patty accumulation behind me and just didn't have the right footing, and I rushed the putt. Solid putt.
Well, 10 played just about in the middle of the field in terms of overall difficulty. 4.27 here on the par 4. Somewhat of a small sample size as well. We have 11 competitors here in the FPO division this weekend. There was 12. Someone had to unfortunately drop out just before the event started. So anytime we're talking about the stats and the numbers, our overall sample size is 11 FPO competitors.
I was actually surprised that there weren't more. I know that we usually get some trickle from the tour, but they did just leave Texas, and most of them are on their way up to Tennessee from Music City, but Yeah, we've had larger fields in the past, but we've also had smaller, so it's about middle of the road.
Yeah, some people kind of taking the weekend off, so to speak, and they're missing out because it's such a fun course. But
Totally.
understandably, it's been 3 long weeks in Texas for a lot of these players. So here we are on hole number 11. This one plays downhill from a secondary shelf. And, of course, always that throw down the mountain stick figure or mounting there. And you love how this one's pushed back. In fact, we're going to join you guys in the middle of the fairway here. There's a little bogey on our part. So we'll pick up the action here in the middle of the fairway. How's that?
This is where my drive landed.
Yep.
I got unfortunate with right up against that tree and didn't have much of a stance, just trying to pitch it out, get it somewhere up there and find a gap on my third shot. If you notice, I don't know if you saw that little owl sculpture out there. I believe it was Jason Rubikova. I think I said that right. He came out there with his chainsaw, and he does a ton of the work out there to prep this course for the month-long of tournaments. And he does a couple of sculptures along the way, and I believe that's one of that he did, and he kind of chipped away at it over the weeks, and it's pretty incredible.
Did you say it's a real hoot?
Oh boy.
You can't sit next to me on a mic without a terrible joke or two coming from me.
I love it.
And speaking of so many years, of course, we've seen the work and the energy and effort that's gone in out here. We're going to see how this course will change and develop with the new owners and Paul and Dillon. And I got to get a big shout out in here to my friends, Dwayne and Susan, who have hosted so many of the golfers out here for many years. As I know, Dwayne's put in hundreds of hours on this property over the last decade to make the experience that it's been. So this is your third.
Gave it a run. I really enjoy the dart, and it's got so much glide to it, and I just feel comfortable anywhere from like 100 feet in, just kind of giving it a bid. Like I said, I'm not gonna lay up. Dwayne was he's been a huge part of the course for as long as I've been coming to the course. It's so great to see him. We're going to be sad to see him go. He's moving north. But also a little bit of history about the course. It was actually owned, or John and Betty Benefield used to live at the course. There was a home there, and Mr. Benefield was actually my tennis coach, instructor. I took lessons from him when I was a kid. He owned this property, and they would have like mountain bike. There was a course out there, and they would have races out there. I never really got to see the property when the original disc golf course was out there with like 27 holes. But yeah, I used to know the guy that lived there. There was a clay tennis court that's the clay tennis court was up on 18's green. That was the tennis court. The cliff was right behind it, and he had it fenced in and everything.
Yeah, and again, and you and your family live just a matter of minutes away from this property. Is that right?
Yeah. Correct, about 2 miles down the road.
Incredible. As we're heading over here to hole number
12.
12. And really, of all the changes in previous years to this year, this is probably the biggest change that we've seen, right? This particular hole.
Absolutely. It went from an ace run to oh my gosh. It's just, there's no really clear line to get to the basket. The play is, I think, forehand, go to the right, or somehow get over to the right. It opens up, and then you have another gap to the basket. Years past, it used to be straight ahead. He made it a par 4. I personally love this hole. I love the backdrop where he put the basket. That land had not been used for the course since I've seen it, and it was just neat to see him open up, clear it out, and really make it a true par 4.
If this stays clean, that looks almost exactly what you were trying to do. It looks like it did catch a late tree, but the line was there. That looks like it's pushing left side for Jordan. She's heard her say that didn't get the flip that she was looking for.
And sometimes you could be so off track that you're actually back on track. There are lines out here that if you completely miss them, I mean, we saw her on hole 5, and there's just lines out there that sometimes you don't even see. And this is a fairly new hole, and if you don't get a lot of practice on it, you're just kind of poking and hoping that you're in the right spot. Like, if you haven't seen it before, you honestly want to be over to the right on your drive.
And maybe no surprise as we're seeing this playing as also, again, one of the most difficult holes out here. It's a par 4, but everybody trying to still learn it and dial it in came in, I think, as the 3rd most difficult hole on the course. And we're seeing all the trickery that's needed. We've seen forehands, backhands, forehand rollers, now a forehand, a little bit of everything.
But you can see how that gap opens up the more right you get.
Yeah, and maybe it's just me, but it feels like it's a very long 460 feet. Maybe is that just the gap that
I mean,
that
when you're
tightens
zigging
up?
and zagging across the fairway like I did, yes, it definitely adds some feet to it.
Oh, and a solid bid. You're trying to ring one up from long
I thought I
range.
had it, Terry.
Look good. You know, we've talked about that a number of times where the baskets are placed in a position where you can be somewhat aggressive. You could give something a hard run in some of these holes where, you know, there's something there to stop you. Other holes, there may be nothing but a cliff. So you really have to pick where you want to be aggressive out here. Good solid putt to save the par here for Jordan. Par will work out just fine.
I like how he moved the pin location back. It kind of leads to the tee pad of gold 12. We're actually going to walk pretty far to the next tee pad, though, up on top of the cliff.
You know, we head over here to 13, as you're saying. It's par 4 at 515 feet.
Yeah, if you see the little Homer Simpson there with a Mando to the left, that is a Mando line that he's got stakes there to where you want to go right of. It's not an OB line. And the new rule is if you miss any part of the Mando, even if you come back in, you still have missed the Mando. So really just want to get a drive straight through the gap. Hopefully get a good placement, not behind a tree. Set yourself up for your next shot. It's a par 4. Again, it's a doozy of it if you don't get enough distance off the tee.
I feel like the backhand is the preferred shot. We saw a moment ago that push off to the right, and with you throwing the backhand, finishing anywhere to the left just opens up your options, really. I mean,
really
you might be
does.
throwing forehand or backhand into the green, but you have those options. And when you push off to this right side, you're going to be contending with a lot more of the trees. I'm going to see Jordan go to the backhand. I really like that.
Yeah.
You know, similar to your shot.
She got great distance on it, and like you said, it opens up both alleyways now to go left or right. Nid's definitely got a gap that she has to hit with a low ceiling, and she's pinched, so unfortunately she turned it over a little bit just trying to get a flex through there. But she's clear of all the other trees now, so she's got pretty decent line to the basket. Just not giving it enough, Terry. Sometimes it just comes out a little too early and didn't fully commit to the shot.
And you spoke a few moments ago about some of the wind or lack thereof, and here we're seeing a little bit blowing the hair of Jordan, which is kind of interesting because we're in a relatively low-lying area of the course at the moment. You know, it feels like you're almost surrounded by some of these higher cliffs and such, but the wind can certainly swirl in this area.
It definitely does. And like I said, it was every couple, like 8 to 10 minutes, it would just pick up and gust, and you just kind of had to wait for it to pass. This basket's pretty protected in this green. There's a hidden tree behind the tree that you can see left of the basket. There's a pretty shaggy fir tree just behind it that you can't really see, and if you don't know it's there, you hit it, and you're like, what did I just hit? You get up there, you're like, oh, there's another tree here. Who put that there?
Yeah, that short left side, as you said, somewhat protected.
And as you can see, she's behind the tree that is guarding the basket that you can't see from a farther distance away. Giving it a solid bid, though. We all thought that was going in.
Yeah, right on line. And the awkwardness, and that's going to be just a pitch.
Forced to take the straddle. She had nothing out to the left side of the tree. It was just too guarded.
Wow, on line as well, and just inches short.
That's probably 20, 22 feet away from this one in the rocks. Like, should have just been a solid putt. And again, just a little lapse of confidence, I think, and chained out left.
Which is surprising from what we've seen so far in your putting here today. You know, it feels like everything has been pretty much solid and center, and so it's surprising to see a little lapse of confidence there.
Yeah, you can just tell sometimes when your game, you just realize that things are not slipping really so much, but you kind of like come down off of a high and you're like, oh no, I need to get back up on that high. Just stick with it. Get through the round. It's hole 13. We're all feeling the fatigue. You got to keep your energy levels up. You got to stay hydrated out there. I mean, you see my water jug. I've already filled it up once. It's hot and you're hiking. You've got to stay on your game.
Oh, speaking of staying on your game, our friends over at Swarm Digital Marketing can help you out. They know that you need a website that works. They also can help with design, development, maintenance. They run the numbers. They tell us that 88% of online customers don't return to a website following a bad experience. So they support Disc Golf. They support Mike, Sun King. They're supporting the channel, so we should support them. Check them out. There's a link in my bio. You can go get a free consultation from them today.
Terry Miller, hole 14.
Oh, my.
1,006 feet.
Oh, yuck.
You want to talk about a hole, and we're teeing from the highest tee pad. It's gold and orange, and we are high. You can't even, I mean, you can't really see the basket on coverage, but I've made it probably a fifth of the way.
That was a perfect shot, though. And, you know, right at the 12 o'clock mark as we're looking down this fairway, like you said, 1,006 feet later is where we finally see the pin when we'll get there. But, man, what a daunting tee shot, because it's so punishing when you're offline. And Nid, almost center of the fairway as well. Such a premium to be placed on the center of the fairway as you're seeing what happens when you're left side.
This is a hole that if you, like you said, don't make it in the center cut or somewhere thereabouts, you're off to left or right, you're now scrambling to try to get a bogey. You have to get that distance off the tee. It is so far down there. It is uphill. He has moved the basket back towards the wall, and he has elevated it. You want to talk about a hole, Terry. This one had to have been the hardest one out there.
Well, we'll run the numbers just like our friends over there at Swarm had done, and that looks like a great recovery shot there. That's
Absolutely.
her third. Going with the forehand that's pushing right side, but that'll be just fine. It's a little bit scary for a moment, but you called it hole 14, second most difficult hole on the course. Averaged 6.64. And you're finally getting to your second shot, and you've got to be happy with that.
I was stoked. That was better than my practice rounds out there. And again, just trying to chip away at the fairway and stay center cut. Now, weekends, since we're not really seeing what the layout is for the other weekends, over to the right, there's a bowl area. This hole is actually two combined, where the basket would be over to the right. Tee pad is just where she threw it, but slightly shorter. And then you would actually go for that basket, which is actually shorter for the other weekends. It's a doozy of a hole.
Yeah, I was going to say some of our previous years, we used to see this essentially played as those two separate holes, even on the pro weekend. And now this is just one long combined five. And so far, everyone's doing a pretty good job of keeping it near center fairway. But now Morgan looks pinched off.
Yeah, just a slight early release on her part, and she didn't quite make it out of the sawgrass. I think she made it to the other side. So once you get up there and that opens out into that whole big area, then you have OB on the right, which it's no joke. It's a sheer cliff quarry drop off. I mean, this is an old mining quarry. They cut the wall, like they blew the wall off. Like
Yeah.
you don't want to get anywhere near the edge. Actually, I think the OB line is probably 3 feet from the edge.
Yeah, it's almost a full 20 feet, I want to say, if you go over the edge of that. And unfortunately, it's kind of exactly what we're seeing there by Morgan falling off over the edge. Her disc, thankfully not her, but her disc falling off. But was she able to even retrieve that?
I think somebody went down and
Okay,
got it for you.
yeah,
You can actually
okay.
walk around.
Sure.
Sometimes that area is a swamp and it fills up with water and they're unretrievable. But I think somebody was nice enough to go down and get it for her.
Jordan, center of the fairway. Really good position here.
And you want to give the basket a run. I know it's raised, but it's got a bit of a backdrop. There's some trees back there. It could get a little dicey, but I don't know. You just don't want to come up short and be in the grass because it gets a little tall. And that looks ideal.
There you see the dark red basket tucked away inside there. So Morgan brings it out. She's got up to 1 meter. She can bring it off the OB line. And now we're seeing a little bit of wind pick up as well.
Yeah, it's been about 10 minutes, so yeah, there's the wind right on cue.
It wouldn't be a 1,000-foot par 5 without some wind, right?
Bring it on.
Nice. Stand still. And that should give her a look.
This distance was just a bit long for a jump putt kind of run at it for me, and the wind had picked up, like you said. Chose to kind of play the wind. It felt like a right to left to me, so I thought I'd kind of leave my putter out on an ante line and just kind of didn't commit fully to the line. Hit the tree. Again, I'm in the circle. Elevated basket, which it's really the only elevated basket on the course. So you got a little bit of added tension on a hole that's already rife with just possible disaster.
And you just called it, the elevation, just one more factor there for Morgan. So frustrating. You get that close, after so many throws, and you still have work to do. What an awkward footing. Looks like you're standing on somewhat of a tuft of grass.
I was right up against the edge of some sawed-off sawgrass. And, yeah, just kind of was falling back when I was putting. It was not a very solid stance. It was pretty frustrating after I got all the way up there. But I knew it was going to come down to the putt. Even if you get all your drives up there, and then to get a roll away, I was a little frustrated. I was bummed, I think, that I didn't get the par. I had a look at par, finally, for the first time ever. But fully committed to the comeback
Yeah, I was just
putt.
going to say, solid comeback.
And I felt great with a 6, truthfully. Like, that was my goal. Knowing that hole, I was like, if I get a 6 on this, I'm okay.
Nid is in for bogey. We saw just one birdie on the day that came in from Natalie Ryan. And that is going to be a triple. So lots of trouble here on the par 5. You don't like to see nobody ever likes to see a snowman in Florida, that's for sure. And definitely not on your scorecard.
Definitely not.
And not by much, but in for the double. And speaking of doubles, I think Double G Jerky is right around the corner.
Nice.
Let's take a little snack break.
I'm Garrett Girthy. People know me as Double G. I've been making Double G craft jerky since I was 16 years old.
I'm always a snacker, so about halfway through, I always find myself reaching for that bag of Double G jerky.
My favorite has got to be the garlic lover's dream. You just can't go wrong with garlic and beef jerky.
That middle of the round, you get into that slump. I'm going to reach for that Double G craft jerky to help me finish strong.
So most of you can't throw like Double G?
but if you get his craft jerky, you can certainly eat like him. Go out and get some Double G craft jerky.
You can find Double G Craft Jerky at doublegjerky.com.
Florida's beloved Double G, as we're heading over to hole 15. This, I think this is one of the most beautiful holes on the course.
I agree.
Talk about the challenge of it, though.
Challenge is, I feel like a broken record, but you don't want to go left off the tee. You will be in jail. It's a line of fir trees. There's a berm. There's OB right with the barbed wire fence, which you can see I'm backed up against on my tee shot. You want to get it straight. If you can hit the gap, it's awesome. If you can get any distance cut off of it, and I just ended right in front of it. And then you have another upshot guarded by probably 3 trees in the middle of the fairway. Got to cut around a corner to a basket with potential rollaway. I mean, it's a common theme out here.
That wanted to kick back out to the fairway, but it looks like it pulled her back in. That's just really the jail spot, though. You cannot be left, and that's exactly now what we're seeing out of Jordan. I mean, you're guaranteeing to waste a stroke, so to speak. And even if you don't make it around the corner like you did, I love that forehand play because, again, it's going to, even if you come up short, it's going to give you a lot of options. It should keep par in play. But when you're over here, now you're working 2 or 3 times as hard just to get a par.
Right. It was nice to see her take the forehand line to the right of the tree on an Annie line and instead of the left hand because you have the potential of that skip towards the barbed wire. And you're right. Like, you want to be close to that gap to have that second shot. And the basket's tucked to the right, so it's still kind of hard to see if you're not up left in that gap. For anybody wondering, that little object in the middle there between the 2 trees is a bell that they actually found in the barn. And it's got a sign on it. Pretty much when you turn the corner, mostly during practice rounds, you're supposed to ring the bell because it's a blind corner to let the group behind you know that you're clear of those 2 trees.
We don't want anyone out here getting their bell rung, that's for sure.
We played a practice round out here, and our friend almost rung one up. Let me tell you, it was close.
And you're just in prime position. I mean, well, of course, a few more feet would be great, but in terms of location, it's centered up to the fairway. You couldn't drop it in a better spot, could you?
It felt great. Sawed off my upshot just slightly, but yeah, you're right. The drive was pretty much where I was. I got a little lucky on the ground play, but that's right where I needed to be. Nid going a little bit long of the basket, but it looks like she might have a tailwind putt.
And when it just comes to overall shape and design and look of all the disc golf holes on this course throughout all the years, this one seems to be my favorite. It's something about the fairway, just how it's shaped, the shots that are required. Overall, I don't know. If I had to pick a favorite hole out here, as crazy as it may or may not seem, hole 15 I think is my favorite.
Yeah, the pin location has changed over the years. Used to be left, more out in the sunlight that you can see. And there's an OB line to the left that marked with stakes, so he kind of took that out of play unless you really saw off a shot. Now it's kind of an open. There is slight hill behind the basket, but not too much danger in running it. And great run. Great run by Morgan.
Yeah, and off in the left side, if you see the other basket there in the corner of your screen, that's actually hole 18. So
looming in the distance.
Exactly. Just thinking about what it's going to be required and how much longer it's going to be before you finally get to play it. But that's hole 18's green, not too far off in the distance. So a little map, Google mapping there for you. I'm kind of like Dora the Explorer, if you think about it.
I've seen you out there with your backpack.
Yes. Certainly some trolls out there, too, and troll bridges. As that's just off the side of the chains. Doesn't get it to drop. Take a look at some of the stats here. This plays as the 5th most difficult hole on the course. Averaged 4.73 on the day. So 3/4 of a stroke over par. Going to be A double bogey there for Jordan.
It gets to about this point in the round where you play this hole. You know you've got somewhat of an ace run birdie opportunity on 15? 16
next
coming
one,
up. And then you have 17 and 18 to play. It's in the back of your mind. I don't care who you are. You know you're thinking about it. And if you've been thinking about it the whole round, you for sure have been thinking about it, probably starting right about now.
Well, you're about to climb up the hill to get to 16, like you said, for a relatively short hole. 17 is always daunting, and then 18 is a beast of its own. So pretty crazy. And if you want to keep up to date with all of the things going on in disc golf, you can head over to theplayersmeeting.com, hit the little subscribe button, put in your email, and they'll send you the best disc golf email you'll probably get this week. So head on over there as we look at the, well, you called it, somewhat of an ace run here on 16.
I love that he kept it in this position. It's been there the whole month, the whole time this course has been open. I know for pro weekend, it used to be over to the right. You couldn't see it. It was a blind shot. I love that he kept it as this birdie op ace run because you needed it right before you go pretty much to the gauntlet at the end of the course. Just kind of a little bit relief. But there's still a lot of danger, Terry. You could come up short. You could hit a tree. You could kick down into the ditch. You could go long. And on the other side of that basket is another downslope with trees and sticks. And it's a great pin placement.
It's definitely one of the more memorable holes when you come out here as well. Even though it's the shortest hole, they'll play all, you guys will play all weekend, MPO or FPO. It's just very memorable. Not much to it in terms of just hitting this gap, but putting on the brakes at just the right time and then staying clear of all the trees. And you see exactly that out of Jordan. She's like, just stop. Just don't hit and roll or go anywhere crazy. And Jordan's going to step up and still have a look here. And by this time, you've already stepped up and you committed to the idea of just laying it up, didn't you?
I did.
We didn't see it. You just stepped up and laid it up.
I did. There just wasn't any. I know there's plenty more disc golf left. I've had rollaways, like hit cage. It just wasn't worth it from the distance I was at and the angle of the pin. I just laid it up. Maybe I'll get it tomorrow.
So you're next to the basket looking for your par save, and that is birdie for Morgan. Kind of fighting back after that struggle she had a couple holes ago.
Great bounce back. And if you could see behind Nid, you can see a long way. I don't know what, like, it's one of the highest points in Florida. I think it's top 10. And it's just gorgeous. It's a photo op if you ever get a chance to come out here.
Every year I change up the stat, but usually I say it's like the 5th highest point in Central Florida. I mean, argue with me. Go ahead and show me the receipts. Tell me it's not. That's what I'll say to you guys in the comment section.
Prove them wrong, folks.
Yeah. I was wrong one other time. All right, here we are on 17, trying to close things out.
All right, OB lining the left side. It's an interesting wavy line, and then to the right, you just have some trees. The basket's been pushed back. You really just want your drive to land safe. Maybe have a look at it, or just an upshot to get your 3 and get out of there unscathed and move on to 18. There's actually OB to the right that I forgot about as well. Those trees, there's a pond over there that's pretty much there year-round. So if you come up short right, long left, you're in some trouble. Yeah,
and thankfully for Nid, that actually sat down. You can't just necessarily burn it over on a turnover there like she did because it had a threat of rolling all the way to the left side. But it ended up checking up for her, and as long as you get, past those trees, then you're not in threat of finding that little marshy pond area.
Right, and I sawed it off, maybe didn't give it as much, but I'm safe over there, and I'll hopefully have a look for the second shot. You hear her say, super safe, no danger over there, it sat.
Squared up in the center of the fairway. We haven't seen a ton of forehands from Nid here, but really just trying to steer clear of that left side OB, and then steps up and delivers just a near perfect forehand.
It's not her go-to, but I'm glad she went to it on that shot. That low ceiling, like it just lined up perfectly for it, and she executed it perfect. And there's that low ceiling. She had some weird footing. It took her a while to get situated because she had some foliage in her backswing, and she just couldn't get her feet in the right position. So, unfortunately, it knocked her down.
And it looks like you're kind of dealing with the same, right?
I was about 15 feet in front of her with about the same look at it, yeah, and just kind of corrected and threw it a little bit lower. But a nice bid. Or
Yeah,
was
it
that
was-
Morgan?
I
I
was
think that was Morgan's drive.
that looked good as I thought it was about to go in. Yeah, so now we have Jordan here trying to save. Still a look at saving the par. We'll see how aggressive she wants to be. Not enough height to it. Nid with a chance here to save par. And just really well played. I mean, yeah, her drive was short, but made up for it with a great approach, solid, confident putt. And you're not really complaining about a par here on 17.
Absolutely not.
It averaged 3.36 on the day out of our 11 FPO competitors. Jordan will walk away with the bogey, and this is Morgan tapping in for a par. And really just keeping it together here on the back side of the course. It seems like it's so much easier to just bleed strokes and give them away here on the backside.
There's definitely not as many birdie opportunities. Like I said, the front 9 is kind of where you want to try to get them at and then just maintain on the back.
And we head over to the famous hole number 18.
18.
First, you can stop at the Distinguished Doodle, of course, and get 20% off. But once you're done washing your dog, you head over to 18. And wow.
Wow, that's 100% what I was going to say. It is just, I mean, the drone footage makes it look kind of easy. It's just right there. You want to throw a backhand turnover, forehand, like if you're a right-handed player, you just want to get to the green. If you cross the green, if you stay on the green, awesome. If you cross the green but go OB, you take it from when out of bounds. If you never get to the green, there's a drop zone down at the bottom. Unfortunately, hers faded out left. It's retrievable, but she never crossed in bounds, so she will proceed directly to the drop zone. And you did actually have the option. If you didn't want to throw, you could go directly to the drop zone with 2 strokes, and you'd be throwing 3.
Okay.
Because sometimes it gets a little squirrely, and you early release, and it goes over to this cliffside, and you may not get your disc back. So if you don't want to risk losing a disc, you can just say, I'm just going to go to the bottom and take 2 strokes.
And did you get yours back?
I got my disc back. I went back later and got it, but
okay.
it was a terrible throw. I early released it. Right disc, wrong shot.
This needs to get down.
And there's that OB line that separates 8 and 18 we talked about earlier, and she probably crossed it by like 30, 40 feet.
Yeah, you really need to get the nose of the disc down when you're throwing down this hill.
It's such an interesting shot, and especially not a lot of Florida players are getting that experience of throwing down or throwing up a cliff. So it really comes down to practice, and that was the great shot. That little plateau that you can see that is just like 2 feet maybe above and it raised. That is a great landing zone for your next shot. You want any height advantage to get up that cliff to the basket.
Yeah, and as you're saying, that platform right there, that plateau, Nid would love an extra 10 or 15 feet up and to the right is kind of where you're trying to place the shot.
We are throwing from the drop zone because our discs never crossed in bounds. And I came up a little short of where I wanted to land, but I got the distance. I got enough distance on it that I'm comfortable with that shot. And as you can see, she can see the cliff, she can see the basket, but that is the smartest play, is to pitch up and give herself an advantage.
And now, interesting to see you go with the forehand here as opposed to the backhand.
I had the great angle. I lined it up. Terry, I've played this hole so many times, and I knew what I needed to do and execute it. If I had been 15 feet farther back, I would have pitched up to that small plateau and then gone for the basket.
Okay, so definitely in your zone. And here, speaking to just that throwing with so much angle and so steep up the hill, it might be a distance that Nid has no problem actually getting to, but just the familiarity and knowing where she needs to place that. She comes up short, and from there, she's able to go to where she was last in bounds, but she still has to throw basically straight up the hill.
Right, and she can per the rule, she can move it back now. She could throw from where she just threw from because it's in line with the basket. And we had a bit of a tailwind at this point, so it just kept pushing stuff down. You can see how fast that came down. It was pushing it down. And a great forehand shot. Morgan getting up and down in 3 shots. Like, that's how you play the hole.
As we're hearing the wind, and now she's pulled it back online and decided where she's most comfortable. But this is still such a steep incline and just doesn't give it enough. And maybe it would have been closer had she not clipped the tree, but doesn't give it enough. And now she's ultimately left with the same shot. She backed up a little bit more to give herself a flatter angle to it, but now she's going to try and go up and over, and this time clears it.
And there's no OB behind this basket. Once you clear the cliff, that orange line back there that you see is just for spectators. That's a player zone. You can go anywhere past that. And that was a great putt by Nid. Way to get up to the top, get off the hole, get revenge on it tomorrow.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a 5X bogey, actually, which I don't have a graphic for, and hope to never have to pull one back out. But solid putt nonetheless to close out the round. And with that, you close out with a bogey as well.
And I'm all right with that. I kind of plan 18. If I can get to the drop, if I don't make it, go to the drop zone, lay up. I'm all right with a 5. 4's great. 5's okay.
We'll see how the strategy plays out. Thank you so much for joining, Ellen. It's been awesome having a hometown gal right here taking in the Brooksville action here at Throwdown the Mountain.